around the world, around the block. It is now time for the World News Local with your host, Brian Black. Give us 15 minutes, we'll give you the news, or something like it. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Black, and thank you for joining me on this very special edition of the World News Local. You are about to witness part one of my sit-down interview with a very special young lady. A young lady who began her career in modeling and transitioned into a very successful career in the world of sports entertainment, aka professional wrestling, where she went on to become one of the most recognizable faces in the industry. Who am I talking about? None other than SoCal Val. SoCal Val currently works for FITE TV network as a host, personality, brand ambassador, and social media guru. As the interview begins, you'll catch us mid-conversation talking about her love of all things reality TV. We then transition into her beginnings in the world of modeling and professional wrestling, where she gives some keen insights on the business of wrestling and modeling. I hope you really enjoy what you're about to witness, as it was just a very relaxed conversation, and I hope you find it informative. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you SoCal Val.
I really don't like, but I love America's Next Top Model. I've seen every episode ever, at least 3 times each. I love that.
I was more into that when it first started. Like the first 4 or 5 seasons of that were really good.
They were, and I don't understand. I meet girls who want to model, and I say, oh, have you watched the show? And they're like, oh, I don't really get into it. I'm like, if you want, it is literally free modeling school. I mean, Tyra Banks can sit there and give you one tip that could just change your entire perspective on the business. She's the most amazing person. She's kind of my personal Jesus. Mm-hmm. But between her and Stephanie McMahon, I mean, I have certain girl bosses where I'm just like, I bow down to, and Tyra Banks she's up there. But yeah, it's really informative with modeling. It's really artistic in the way they do photo shoots. Again, same thing with that show though. Like, I don't like the drama in the house and the girls being catty. I'm like, whatever, I want to see you model. I want to see the finished product of the photo shoot, the hair and makeup, and the artistic side of it. But yeah, it's an amazing show. I love it. The last one they did was they had Rita Ora, who's British, and God bless her. Girl can dress, but she was the most unlikable host I've seen in a long time. She was just really bland and just not good. So they're bringing Tyra back. So
good.
Excited.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I love, I watch, I still follow, what's her name, Eve. I follow her on Instagram. I love her.
Yeah, she's doing great. I've met a couple of them. I met Adrienne Curry a couple of times, and she was one of the nicest people ever. And I love her. They've launched careers of some really great ones. There's one called Leela Goldpool. I hope I'm saying her name right. She's just, she's in some Fendi ads right now. I mean, she's doing an amazing job. So the show proves also that it's not just they win and you never hear from them again. I'm literally flipping through Vogue and I'll see a couple girls that were on season 2, season 7. It's pretty cool. Like, that.
I'm sorry. now the fashion, is that what led you down into the wrestling?
It helped. I liked for the same reasons that I liked the reality TV stuff. I think that's kind of why I liked wrestling. I liked the stories. I loved Stephanie McMahon. I remember thinking she was, I'm drawn to any of these characters like a Miranda Priestley in Devil Wears Prada, or, the girl boss type, or the spoiled little rich girl. I loved that kind of a character, and she was that, personified. So when I saw her sort of, strutting around in these great outfits, and people like the cat, Stacey Carter, just being super girly, because my sister and friend were watching it, and I was like, that stuff's stupid, it's for boys, I don't like it. And then I saw these girls, and the thing that I miss about it, and actually it's gotten more like that, which I'm thrilled about, that the girls are sort of uber hyper feminine, and that really sets them apart from the guys. That's why I love, with Alexa Bliss had all the pink and the fairy dust, and then Bailey and bright colors. I love that the girls they're allowed to and encouraged to be hyper feminine. So I loved that about Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler. They were allowed to use their feminine wiles, and that's what set them apart. That was what broke the show up for me. I didn't want to see just dudes wrestling all the time. I appreciate the athleticism of it, and I loved Triple H, and I loved the heel characters, but I really loved the girls. I never wanted to be a wrestler, but I loved the girls that would bring the guys down to the ring and cheat and, get to play a bad girl. That kind of thing really intrigued me.
Now, you said you never wanted to be a wrestler, but did you get trained? Did you train to be a wrestler?
I trained a bit. Like, I know when I moved to Florida, I had done some shows in California, hence the SoCal name.
Right.
I looked up Dean Malenko's school, which I think just closed. And I looked up some schools because I knew I needed to learn to take bumps. But I thought I would maybe wrestle somewhat, but I didn't really ever want to become a wrestler. I thought it would be more, you know, I should be a well-rounded performer where if they go, have you taken a bump or could you take this move, I would be able to do it. Maybe tag match. I wanted to do what I saw the girls that I loved doing. You know, Stacey Keebler and Tori Wilson did bra and panties matches. They did, you know, a mixed tag here and there. They weren't really wrestlers, let's be honest. I mean, they were wrestled, but come on, nobody really remembers them as these intricately trained wrestlers. So I wanted to do that at the most, and I did some of that, and that I sort of enjoyed. But the actual wrestling aspect never appealed to me. Even when I actually got in there and did it, it hurts like hell. People are like, why don't you want to wrestle? I'm like, what? It hurts. What do you mean? It's very painful. So it's just not my thing. I'm not an athletic person. I wanted to be more of a character, and yeah, just the physical. I'm not a physical person like that. It's just not me. You gotta know who you are. You know, it's like you can't. It's like if a girl said to me, I would never want to manage. I used to joke all the time with Gail Kim because she loves all the parts of business that I really don't get into, and she detests all the parts that I love. She did not really like doing photo shoots and stuff, but she knew that that's what I loved. And I said, isn't that funny that like we both love wrestling, but you know, we know our roles basically.
Mm-hmm. Now, what? Speaking about bumps, you just made me think of it. What was your reaction when you took your first bump, like your first legit bump? And I'm talking like the mattress isn't sitting there anymore, and you know the guys are like, "All right, you're gonna take this bump."
Yeah, I mean, ow is the first word that comes to mind. I remember thinking, like everyone thinks that, and I'm sure you've experienced it, that like, oh, well, it looks like it bounces, or this came out. It's like doing it on a wooden plank, and exactly what you are doing. And I mean, just it's like getting the wind knocked out of you over and over and over and over again. And it's just, I don't enjoy that. I really do not. And even like the sort of, I've wrestled enough to know
right.
that when you're in the ring and you sort of get that like adrenaline and you see them kind of poking up, as you'd call it, or something. I understand that and having a crowd, it's a little, I can understand where the adrenaline fuel comes from and why people like that sort of like powerful feeling.
Right.
But that to me was never anything that I really wanted to keep recreating. I felt like, I can kind of see why people like that, but if it comes from all that pain and bruising and, you know, and being exhausted all the time and having injuries, absolutely not. It's not for me.
Now, how old were you around that time when you were training?
I mean, I never was fully trained. I did some stuff. I was about 16 and 17. So we worked out of a gym actually. I mean, the most training I ever did, I had guys help me here and there, you know, before shows, but mainly I did like a few weeks, or might have been longer than that, at a gym up here I'm actually in Orlando, Florida right now. It was up in Altamont, I believe, and the gym was run by Coco Pelli's gym. And it's funny because Seth Petrozelli was one of the guys who he would have a Muay Thai class ending, and then our wrestling training, they would let us use the ring to do wrestling. And I remained friends with him over the years, and then he eventually became a WWE striking coach. So it's sort of all came full circle from that gym, which is funny. But yeah, and I didn't do it that long. I wanted to be safe and learn to take bumps properly and things like that, and a little bit of chain wrestling, but nothing where you know. And then I wrestled more when I was in Ring Divas, but that was really with girls that weren't trained at all or very little, and that was just more like, you know, storyline driven, hot chicks, that kind of a thing. So that wasn't really anything too technical per se.
Back in that time, what did your parents think about all of that?
Well, it's just my mom, and she always tells the story. Everyone calls her SoCal Mom. That's what Monty Brown. That's a name from the past.
Feel the passion.
Would call her kind of stuff. She always just said, well, you know, if you get into this business and it changes you, I'm going to yank you right out. Because I was really young, and I was always going with friends of mine that were older. It's kind of like chaperones, who I'm still friends with to this day, two of my best friends. A guy and a girl, not a couple, but they were friends of mine in California. And yeah, and I just, you know, I never changed. I never got yanked out of it. So I think she knew that it was sort of, I was doing a lot of acting and things, or I was getting into acting. And then a friend of hers said, well, you know, maybe she's found her niche, that she's sort of different, and maybe that's why she'll stand out, because she doesn't seem the type that wants to be. Because you know, the types of girls in wrestling, 90% of the time they wanted to be Lita. You don't meet girls that go, I wanted to be Trish Stratus, you know. And so I was never a Lita. I was not a Lita fan, but I just didn't want to. I didn't want to emulate that. I wanted to be a step. So but that was very different back then, and I think it kind of is now, because a lot of times with the women's revolution and everything, which is great, as wonderful as that is, it's sort of the reasons that I got in to be a manager and to be doing more photo shoots and things like that, it's diminished quite a bit, which I'm a little sad about.
Well, you think so? Because I don't know. It seems like, and again, you're in the business. Just my observation. Like I see, like you said, you see the girls, the women rather. But they're still keeping, like you said, they're keeping that femininity. But then I do see a Bailey. I go online and I'm looking. Bailey's taking pictures and some of the other girls. Some of the TNA girls, the GFW girls. They're all still doing that. But you think that's going away, or is it just certain aspects? Are you talking about like?
I think it's still there, and I think it should always be there. I think they'd be insane not to do photo shoots, but I think it's not as big of a priority as it was. I know people will, and I don't really care, but they'll kind of come to me and be like, well, I didn't like just the divas back then. I'm literally looking at old DVDs of Divas. What is that one? Divas Desert Heat, Divas Postcard from the Caribbean, all of those. And I loved that. I loved that they were sort of like Sports Illustrated models and wrestlers. But how cool is that? But again, like that's my personal preference, because I liked that part of it. And I liked the managers. I was so thrilled when they had Lana come out. I thought, my God, finally there's a manager. She seemed kind of like Brigitte Nielsen in Rocky IV type of a character, and I loved that. And then now she wrestles, which is totally her prerogative. By the way, if you ever meet her, she's one of the nicest girls. Such a beautiful girl, nice, informed, good, girl. And I think that my excitement for that was because you saw no managers for such a long time. But now, it's more about wrestlers, which is okay because managing is also very cyclical. You'll see a lot of managers and they'll go away, or, tag team wrestling will have a big resurgence, then it'll go away. So I'm kind of waiting for that cycle of managers to come back. I think that would be cool.
Well, roughly, if you don't mind me asking, of course,
roughly how old were you when you got to TNA?
I was about 18. Well, actually, I did a TNA show in 2003, so I was 17. I was almost 18, I believe, because it was in January, and I remember how old I was because I was not 18 yet. I'm sorry. Was I? Yeah, I think I was going to be 18 that year, so I was 17, and I told Kid Cash, I remember specifically because I've retold this story to him, and I said, do you remember that? I told you, yes, how old I was, and I told him because nobody else really knew, and I didn't really want to make it a big thing because I thought, I remember signing you have to be on pay-per-view. I wasn't sure if I had to be over 18, but they didn't ask, so I didn't say anything, and ended up working in my favor eventually, and he told everyone in the locker room, like, oh my God, this girl is like not even 18 yet, which looking back, I was not that shocked that he did that because it was kind of unheard of for this girl to be, around doing these shows that young. But now it's a good girl. I was there for the right reasons. I had my sights set on one goal, which was to do what I eventually did, which was to be with a big company. And weirdly enough, ended up being that company. At the time, they were NWA TNA in Nashville. Was that first show I did in 2003. And then they came to Orlando, and I just showed up to every show with tapes and resumes, anything I could bring that in case I could meet somebody and have them give me an opportunity. And then eventually they did. So the first shows I worked, I was, I think, 18, and David Sahadi let me be an assistant producer backstage, which just meant not assistant producer, well, I guess sort of an assistant to the producer. And I just sort of like helped backstage with different, whatever was needed. Like I remember one time we were doing a promo where Monty Brown was like working out and they needed like mist behind him. So I'm there with like a spray bottle behind the camera, like just doing anything to be involved. And David Sahadi said, I'm getting you backstage because they're going to see, that you should be on a camera. And that eventually worked out because then Jeremy Borash asked me to be a ring girl. And I think the first show I ever worked was 2004, just in December. So I must have been about 18 at the time. Yeah. And then I think I was signed at about 19.
Now because you all, and it's funny because that was one of the things I was going to ask you, you kind of covered it, but you often, you mentioned it to me one time about just hustling,
Yes.
Like what is it that like drives you, because just even like hearing now, I get to hear you actually tell your story about, how you kind of, I don't want to say backdoored into it, but you really kind of said, hey, here's my tapes, here's my resume, I'm here, what do you need me to do?
Yeah, you know what? There's a quote from Mad Men, another great show. We were talking about TV shows, that says, it's not about being in the right place at the right time. It's about being in the right place all the time. And to me, I love that quote because to me, I was somebody that just made myself, or I was always around, and I purposely would ingratiate myself with anything to do with, the business I wanted to be in. So I was going to shows. And it's funny because even after people were saying, oh, well, maybe, you've already done some shows, so you don't want to be in the crowd and, that's beneath you. And I was like, listen, whatever. I want to be around wrestling. And what's the worst thing someone can say? Wow, she's really persistent. She really wants to be here. That's the truth. It's nothing to be ashamed of. So yeah, I was there. I remember one show in particular, the first shows I ever did in Orlando, I'd only done some in SoCal, and one promoter, I was 16 at the time, and I was, dressed up like kind of, not businessy, but kind of professionally. And I was more dressed up than anybody at a wrestling show. And I said, I'd really love to be on your show. I've done some work in California. And he said, well, do you have a tape? And I said, well, no, I've only done maybe, a handful of shows, and I could try to get some footage, but I'm not. And he just said, well, if you don't have a tape, then I have nothing for you. Then I went to a show maybe the next day or something, and the promoter who I've worked with for years, Chris Carson in SCW, who Byron Saxton is actually from the same federation. We used to go to shows together all the time, so he knows, the early days of SoCal and Byron. And, that promoter, I said the same thing. I really would love to do the shows. And he was like, we have a raffle going on tonight. Can you get in the ring and help with? I was like, absolutely. So I did that. And I was sort of the Vanna White there for the night. And then they let me manage. That's who I eventually trained with in that gym I was telling you about. So you have to just find the right person that's going to give you the opportunity. But if you're not hustling, as we call it, which I love having that discussion with people, because I think they just think, oh, well, you're some girl that just walked in and it happened. I mean, I was making my own reels online, and then while I was in TNA, and you never stop hustling. It's like, oh, I have the job now, and I'm going to just relax and be complacent. I was making sure that I was learning skills to, edit my own stuff and write my own scripts. I remember writing scripts that eventually Hulk Hogan got to say in commercials. It was a small script, but still pretty cool. Yeah, and learning little different languages so I could record promos to our German audience, even if it was one or two lines in French or German. Just so that the fans there would think, oh, wow, she learned that, and to say thanks for watching Impact. Just little things like that I thought were going to, take me to the next level. So I feel like you have to always be learning and always sending out resumes. And nowadays it's easier, doing things online and applying for things online. So yeah, it's funny, I have no time the older I get too, when people are just like, I don't understand why I haven't made it yet. Like, do you expect Vince McMahon to just come knock on your door? Or do you expect like Jeff Jarrett to just, come on, send your stuff in, be there, go to the camps, go to the shows, always be professional, dress for the job you want, period. It seems like a very simple concept to me, but it clearly is not, because a lot of people do not implement it whatsoever.
No, I agree. And sometimes, people even joke, it's, oh, well, you're older, you make old jokes, and that's old school. Well, sometimes old school is good school. You know who thinks like that? Paul Heyman. He has the exact same mindset. When I talked to him about it, I was like, oh my God, I see a lot of similarities in myself and Paul Heyman, which was so cool. Have you ever seen the documentary about him on WWE Network?
Yes, I did.
Amazing. And he was that kid that was like annoying, that was always at the shows and wanting to do the newsletter. And look, that's the kind of personality that I have. And I think that you do too. And it's one of those things that you can't teach people that. You either have it in you or you don't. You mentioned working in TNA, and then you just mentioned Hulk Hogan, about how you were able to write copy for him and things like that. So, obviously you've been around in that business for a while now, but specifically, working under TNA, because there were so many legends, as you want to say, as we like to say, that came through that door, that were either in management or just, talent, whether it be behind the scenes or in the ring. Like, what was it like being under that learning tree? You like you said, you worked right under Hogan, with Eric Bischoff, even Jeremy Borash,
What was that like for you as being a human sponge? I would assume,
And I appreciate that term, because that's what I would hope to be. And Jeremy Borash, I'm so glad that you put him in that category, because he taught me so much. Just to watch him every night was great, and how quick he is, and how he does. Nobody will ever realize, I'm not going to put myself in the same category exactly, but no one ever realizes what JB really does. It's not, they go, oh, he's the announcer guy. He is like the cog that makes the machine work. He's always doing something and coming up with new ideas, and he's just an amazing hustler, like you said. And it's funny, because I will use a quote from my brother-in-law, who's in a band called The Script, which I'm getting a little cheap little plug. But the reason I mention who he is because he's in a big enough band, a high-profile enough band, that he meets a lot of high-profile people. And we always have the conversation about how it's so funny that you meet people. In his case, it would be Bono, Sting, people like that. In my case, it would be a different guy named Sting, and Hogan, and people like that. So literally. So he always has a phrase that he uses, and it's, the bigger the star, the nicer they are. And it's funny, because I won't name names, but a lot of the smaller guys, whether they're smaller in stature or smaller in, having, not a lot of credibility in the business yet, a lot of times they're the ones with the attitudes. They're the ones that don't want to do promos for me that day, or they don't want to do an interview, or they're going to give me, I might get a nice version of them one day, and one day they might be in a grumpy mood and whatever. You know who was never like that? Guys like Hulk Hogan, guys like Eric Bischoff. And it's amazing. I remember like Hogan one time couldn't come do a promo. He's like, Val, I'll be right there. Okay, I told you I'd come. Just like amazing, nice, humble people. And Eric Bischoff, without any discredit to the management in Impact Wrestling, I never had anyone take me aside like Eric Bischoff did. Actually, twice. He pulled me aside one day and he goes, "Is this like the fourth outfit you've worn today?" He goes, "It's like 2 o'clock and you got here at 11. And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, either you're doing a lot of different things and we're not paying you enough, or you just like changing clothes." And I was like, a little bit of both, because what he was joking about was true, that I was filming all these different shows, and just, I knew that like episode per episode, I didn't want to be wearing the same stuff. And he just saw me walking back and forth and hustling. And then another time, months later at a show, he pulled me aside out of nowhere, and I said hi to him or something. I'm always in a bubbly mood. Terry Taylor used to say the same thing. He appreciated my attitude. And Eric Bischoff would say, I have to say, you're here the earliest. A lot of times you stay the latest. He goes, "You always are the happiest, most positive person. And I'm not sure if you feel like you're appreciated, to let you know, I see what you're doing and I appreciate you." And I was just like, I probably went away. I probably was professional and to him, and then probably cried or something, because it was just so touching that he, as an outsider, and I'm very low on the totem pole. I'm not, staying in some main event that night. I'm just Val, doing my stuff. But the fact that he took the time to say that. So whenever I meet fans, very often actually, that say, "Oh, well, Hogan and Bischoff specifically, it was their fault." I'm like, you have no idea what kind of people they are, and how professional they run things, and how they treat other people, and how much they wanted us to succeed. So that's been difficult to deal with fans who think that, they seem to blame the wrong people. And I love that you mentioned Hogan and Bischoff specifically, because they're both so awesome to work with and so giving.
How did they improve your craft creatively? What did you take from them in terms of creativity, even in terms of hosting and broadcasting and things of that nature?
I'll go back to JB with this one. There's just so many different things that he did. Like I mentioned earlier, like I think with no job being too small, I think he kind of proved that he was just there to contribute no matter. That's how I always wanted to be remembered too. Somebody that just was there to contribute no matter what. So if they need you to do something, or I personally didn't really particularly want to go back to being ring girl after Jay Lethal's storyline with me and Sanjay's storyline with me, but that's what they needed from me, and I was like, it's a step backward, but of course I'll do it if you need me to do it. And that led to other things and more announcing and things like that. But with working with people like that, even Abyss, I would put in that category, RVD, Ken Anderson, so many people, it does come down to more personality than you realize, because they make the way that they treat the crew is a big deal. The way that they're okay to do the 6th take if they're tired, that kind of thing. Just having a really good attitude. It sounds really cliche, but it's a huge, huge deal. Because the other stuff, the charisma and stuff like that, you can't really teach. I think that they, were people that had huge followings, and that's great. But I think just having a really good attitude and not being too big to do something, or like I said, Hogan doing my little promos backstage, the way that he treated me was really inspiring. So I think that's something to be said for, as to how good their attitude was, and how they made others around them feel.
Now, and you kind of go around now. You go around often now to a lot of independent shows and things of that nature. I know you're treated well when you go out, so that's not even the question. We're not going to ask that.
Well, I better be.
Well, some of us do what we can.
Yeah.
But in terms of, like smaller talent, and I hate to really use that term. That's the word that's coming to my mind. And how they, approach, people, more name talent, people who've been in the business, such as yourself, or a Hulk Hogan, a Ken Anderson.
What kind of advice would you give to them in terms of approaching people to say, "Hey, could you watch my match?" or ask for some tidbits in terms of the craft and things of that nature?
I think that's always a good idea, and I'm always so shocked when a wrestler wants it with me, because I'm like, well, I appreciate that, but I'm also like, I'm not going to be able to critique your match as a wrestler. I don't believe I'm anyone to be saying, oh, you did a good or bad job, but I will say that I enjoyed it. I look more at like facials and character and things like that, because I interview people all the time too. So I see even some of the camps that we've done. I remember Robbie E and I did several where that was part of their learning process, was to be interviewed by me. So I would come up with something improv and say, hey, Johnny, whatever your name is, you're going to be wrestling, Chris Sabin tonight in a triple threat, whatever. And I would come up with something and they'd have to react on the fly. So I look at more stuff like that. I think I look at, again, attitude is a big deal. So when that happens, or when it happens with a girl, I'm actually really, really encouraged and flattered that they would want me to look at their managing or whatever. So first of all, I think even just having the courage to, first of all, introducing yourself is really cool. And then having the courage to say, can you watch my stuff, or asking any questions is really, really nice, because you're never going to get a bad reaction from that. That's always nice to hear. But I have to say that one thing that I find lacking, and it's so refreshing when I see it, is when people are good at promoting themselves and they're good at, you know, offering to do things to promote the show and to promote FITE. For example, when I go to these shows, I'm there representing FITE. I might be booked as an announcer, as a manager, whatever, but 9 times out of 10, it's for FITE TV, where I'm there, you know, doing their social media and I do their on-air hosting and things like that. So it is so cool when a wrestler very rarely will come up and say like, okay, so, you know, can I send you a video to promote the show? And I'm like, oh my God, it's like pulling teeth to get wrestlers or promoters even to send us stuff to promote their show, which I don't understand. Again, being a hustler, I had a website, but like before my first show, like I've always been online and, you know, into social media and stuff like that before it was even huge. So I think when a wrestler wants to improve, they need to look at their social media and promoting themselves, promoting the events that they're on, promoting the network, FITE TV a lot of times, that they're on, and actually doing it. It's one thing to say, oh, I'll send you a promo. A lot of them never do. Or, you know, offering to help out and they don't actually follow through with it. But there's a lot of wrestlers actually that stand out that I'll go, oh my gosh, so-and-so, you know, tweeted or Instagrammed that they're going to be on the show. They're going to get a retweet. They're going to get more exposure. So again, it just baffles me that why people wouldn't want to promote themselves, promote the show. Any exposure is good exposure. I've even asked wrestlers to send stuff and they'll, oh, you know, they never do. And it's just like, literally, you know, you have to know that, again, the opportunity is not just going to come knocking on your door. Anything you can do to make yourself more known online, on social media, in promos, whatever, go above and beyond, you know, and I wish more people did that.
Going back a little bit, we talked about women in wrestling. If you could have had one word to describe the state, for lack of a better term, of women's wrestling right now, what would that word be?
Ooh, I would say progressive, just because it's doing so well, but I don't think we're seeing, you know, all it can be. I think it does fluctuate. Like I said, with the managers not being as big of a deal, there's so many different characters, diverse and progressive, I would say, because I love that there are so many different global superstars now in NXT, say the Mae Young Classic, things like that. The diversity is really cool to me, because back in the day, I will say that it's a lot cooler now. This part of it's cooler. You know, it's kind of like big boob blonde girl or scary women's wrestler. Right. You know what I mean? That was kind of what you got. Right. And you had to kind of be either or. And now it's just, I mean, there's so many different types of girls. It's kind of like being a little girl and going to the doll store and they do this. They look at them and they go, oh, I like that one. For me, and it's funny, if you think about it, when I was a little girl, I loved redheaded dolls that were like super glam and over. Hello. I mean, that's what I grew up to want to be and emulate. And that was my personal, from a child, I was playing with Barbies. I wanted to be career Barbie and have, you know, but her friend Malibu Midge, because she had the red hair and I loved red hair. But there are little girls that, you know, that want to be Lita, or there are little girls that want to be Sasha Banks or Bailey or whoever. So I just think it's cool you have all these different characters to choose from, because it shouldn't be, it's unfair to say, like I said back in the day, where you're either Barbie or you're scary, you know, chick that's, you know, intimidating. So I think it's cool we've had a lot to choose from now.
Wait, and it just dawned on me. Have you seen Glow by any chance?
Oh my God, I love Glow so much. I didn't know what, because Allison Brie was in Mad Men, so I liked her. She's been in a lot of great stuff, and I was like, what is this show? And I was like, are they going to make fun of it? First of all, I couldn't believe how many people I knew on it. That was hysterical. I loved Awesome Kong. I don't know what to call her, Kia. I call her Kia. She was hilarious. But it is such, you know what, I'll say it. Forget the wrestling. If you didn't even have, it is such a great show. It is so well written. It is so well acted. Obviously, wrestling is the whole point. But I mean, the promoter guy, he's hilarious. The whole show, I don't care if you don't even like wrestling, if you detest it, it is an amazing, watchable show. I loved it.
Did you watch the original, like back in the day?
No, I've seen clips. I never was actually physically there to watch it. No, it was colorful, but it wasn't like super overtly sexual either. What's funny is I'm almost glad that I wasn't a fan back then. I didn't start watching wrestling honestly until like the late 90s or so. But well, yeah. But it's funny because I'm almost glad that I didn't see it, because I remember thinking, I've seen clips of Glow and stuff, but it's been a long time. So I was watching the Glow Netflix show and I thought, they've got to be like overdoing this. It couldn't have been that campy. Oh my God. If you look at some of the old clips, it's almost worse. It's so campy. I mean, worse in a good way. It's so bad it's good. It's like over the top. Like with the two old ladies. Like, what the hell is that? It's crazy.
It's so 80s, right? It's so dated. Like it's if you wanted to do like 50 years from now, a case study on the 80s where, you know, you open up like a Star Trek time capsule or something like that. What were the 80s like?
Yes.
What were the 80s like, Spock?
This is it. it's Aquanet and neon and just hilarity, frivolity from every front. It's so great. And like I said, whether you like wrestling or not, because some people are like, oh, I don't even like telling people about it because they just assume that it's me because I'm from wrestling and they think that I'm trying to push it on them. I'm like, dude, just watch one episode. Because the first episode alone was so captivating. It had me watch the whole thing quickly. Christy Hemme and I were just talking about it just a couple days ago, actually. She loves it as well.
Thank you for viewing part 1 of my sit-down interview with SoCal Val. I really hope you enjoyed it. Keep your eyes glued to the World News Local Facebook page, Instagram page, and Twitter page for part 2, which will be dropping soon. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, comments, please email me at the email listed below. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, don't be a stranger and stay away from danger. Brian Black, out.
My first love, my first start. Wherever I am, wherever I go, you've gotta know my soul is home. These are my roots, home is heart. My first love, my first start. Wherever I am, wherever I go, you've gotta know. I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere, trying to remember exactly how we got there. I'm looking around, don't see nobody I know, cause I'm lost out of place, don't know where to go. I'm just trying to find my way back east. You cannot separate my soul from these streets. I wanna go where them corner stores sell ices for 25 cents. That's a quarter well spent.